Just go. Oh, yeah, I did it again. You know how I am, Farah. I forgot to push the go live button. There's too much going on. Go check again. So yeah, so they think that by rolling back these Biden era rules, that we are going to believe, or I guess their voters will believe, that this is somehow going to lower prices, and then their voters um, are going to go to the grocery store and come back and say, okay, the prices are low now. Like I guess that's their plan, but really, when you look at it, it's just to help companies out to lower their costs. Um, right, right. Some company, some corporation, right, they are going to have much lower costs, much lower costs, much bigger profit margins. Um, okay, thank you, Farah. Yep, they saved the world, right? They saved us all. They are also pushing a narrative. The corporations have realized that, there is this big progressive movement to, hold on one second. There's this big progressive move. Oh, there you are, Steve. I didn't see you come in. So yeah, there's this big, they realize there's a progressive movement to tax the rich and all this stuff. So what they are going to do is, and Jeff Bezos rolled it out, is say, don't take our tax cuts, give bigger tax cuts to the little guy, to nurses and teachers and working class people making, $100,000 or less. The only problem with that is that people with families, a lot of those are getting big refunds. They're not really paying federal taxes. So it's a bait and switch in that respect. And giving us a small tax cut on our federal taxes is not going to have the same return as giving us health care, like Medicare for all, giving us free childcare, giving us free state education, right? And they know that, but this is how they are countering the progressive movement. What do you think, Steve?
Totally agree. Totally agree. I mean, thanks again for having me, by the way. Good evening, everybody. Happy Sunday. Happy almost June. Happy almost Pride. Yeah, I really just the way in which the status quo Dems have been messaging lately, it just tells you how concerned they are about the progressive wing of the party. And I think they need to get on board, because they need us. And let's be honest, we need them as well to kind of get to where we all want to go. It's all about money. You're seeing a lot of progressive candidates across the country winning. I think it's a good sign, but we still need to focus on harm reduction. We still need to get there. I had almost like a new analogy when we talk about harm reduction. It's like almost like a MASH hospital, because we all remember MASH. It was like my favorite show as a kid, right? The battlefield wound. You gotta fix it up so you can send them to Seoul so they can get sewn up better. That's kind of how we have to approach this, right? We've got to stop the bleeding, like literally, and push that needle forward. So yeah. But I think the biggest thing is that they see the threat. I mean, think about that Texas Senate race, Lisa. The things that they're now saying about James Tellerico, about how scared the Republicans are, and I hope people in Texas understand. Yeah, we can lick our wounds from Jasmine. We all can lick our wounds from that, but it's a big opportunity here to flip the Senate.
A big opportunity, real big opportunity, and the Republican voter turnout in that primary was atrocious. You know what I mean? Yeah, in some of the counties, like only 1% of the people that showed up in 24 to vote for Trump showed up to vote in this primary.
It's wild.
Like 1% in some of the counties. So, yeah. It's not. You're right. It's not just Republicans. It's establishment Democrats. And it's going to be a concerted effort by, you're not just going to see Jeff Bezos, you're going to see them all, right? You're going to see, all these billionaires get out there and say, oh no, we understand, but don't take our tax cuts and our tax loopholes and make us poorer, right? Like poor and them should have any kind of, connection at all. But, just give everybody else a tax cut too. They shouldn't be paying any taxes. And what that does is accelerates the downfall of the federal government. And what people need to understand is that there has been propaganda against the federal government. The federal government is our collective power, because as individuals, the small guy, we have no power. And the federal government was created and bolstered and beefed up by Roosevelt and FDR to be our collective power, to be our champion, standing in the breach against these big, powerful corporations and all their money and all their power. And that's, was supposed to be our mechanism to regulate them and to keep them in check and to make sure they weren't exploiting us. And they bought it out. They pretty much bought out. It's like they're the prosecutor and we're the defense, and they paid our lawyer.
I'm always amazed. Well said. I'm always amazed the lengths that people will go to defend the billionaire class. I think I've said this to you on your show before. 900 billionaires in our country, cumulative wealth of $8.3 trillion, and people will defend them. It's like defend them. We don't want them to leave. We don't want them to have to pay a little bit more. I just talk about effective marketing. That the billionaire class has been able to convince the working poor, as we often call them, that somehow those billionaires are their champion. You're not going to get a bite. You're not going to the Gatsby party. You're just not, it's not happening.
No, you're not. And, me and Stacey talk about them all the time. They think that they're just temporarily embarrassed millionaires, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire someday, right? Any second now, my ship is going to come in and I'm going to be up there with them. And somehow it's like proximity to power, proximity to whiteness, proximity to richness, I guess. I don't know. Like it all goes, in the same bucket. Yeah, Tam, I saw that too. I think that it's a little hyperbolic to be calling Mikey Sherrill Trump at this point. But that's what we get. This is what we get from parts of the left. Like, oh my God, she turned into Trump. No, she didn't. She didn't turn into Trump. I think that she's doing her best. It's a volatile situation. She sent the police down there to protect protesters, and they're the cops. So they did what they do. And, they shot rubber bullets at people and gas canisters at people and, did what they did. So, yeah, I do think she needs to get a handle of it, though. Have you been keeping apprised of that situation, Steve? What do you think?
Yeah, Delaney Hall specifically. Yeah, I mean, it's horrible. I mean, it is. And words matter, and we need to call it what it is. It is a full-blown concentration camp in the United States borders in 2026. There's no denying it. MAGA-ridden food, hunger strikes. I mean, it's barbaric. We can debate. We can debate economic policy all day and healthcare, but this is humanity, Lisa. Like this is just basic humanity, and people are celebrating this and trying to say it's not what it is. And this is the fight long after Trump that we've got to be able to take back credibility in journalism, credibility in science, credibility in education. These are long lingering scars that is going to take a very long time to fix. So I ask, and me, I'm a bright blue progressive. We've got to be patient. It may not be fixed in my lifetime, but hopefully in my daughters, hopefully in children and grandchildren, because it took 50 years for the right to get us here, and it may take that long to get us back. But we gotta start now.
Yeah, I do believe it's absolutely horrific, and I know a bunch of Mikey Sherrill took a contingent down there, the New Jersey Department of Health, and they wouldn't let them in. And I know Andy Kim got in there. I also know that he also got sprayed with pepper spray in the face. So I mean, it's just horrific what's going on over there. But I do think that, we do have to be patient, but also I do think Mikey Sherrill needs to get a hold of it. Like she needs to get on that. Like what I know that it's a tough situation, rock, meat, hard place, get that, all of the things. And I understand that she is trying to prevent ICE from escalating like in a big way and having a standoff between the state, police and the federal government. I understand that too. But it's like, yeah, you're going to have to do something better than what you're doing, because at this point, like
people more.
Yeah.
I'd like to see her more publicly. I'd like to see her more, right? I mean, yeah, it's you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's a tough situation, but so are we? She shouldn't have to be doing this. That's part of the problem, right? When we've got, you know, the ultimate in government overreach in a tyrannical government where you've got untrained, unqualified, you know, masked federal agents out in the streets in an American city doing this bullshit. It's just this is how far we've fallen.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, I know. It's only Newark's about 45 minutes from me. And I actually thought about going up there just to see for myself, like, you know, what's going on and stuff. And I'm like, Lisa, you're a federal employee, you know, and also I will do some crazy shit and then think about the consequence later. That's how I am. And I'm like, yeah, you better just keep your ass home. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You can sit your ass home because there's nothing you can do to help those people.
I was gonna say I need to give you my number. I'll be your one phone call if necessary, Lisa.
Okay. For real, it's yeah. I'm like, it's only 45 minutes, you know. And tomorrow, John Blake is running in one of our ruby red districts here in New Jersey, New Jersey 4. And he's been on the show a couple times. He's a progressive, no corporate money, all that good stuff. And he went down there yesterday, so he's going to be on with us tomorrow night to give us the, you know, the details about what he saw. He was there yesterday. So, and I know a lot went down yesterday. So I'm anxious to talk to him. You know what? Let me pause this. Tyler.
Everybody, thanks for jumping in. We're going to have another great interview tonight. I'm sure everybody tap the screen. Liking is loving, tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. Repost this, share it, comment, get the word out to your friends so we can do our business.
T-Dubs, I did not expect you tonight, my friend.
I wouldn't have missed
on your birthday.
On my birthday. I would not have missed
birthday,
you on my
bro.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it, man.
29, right?
Oh, I've had a great weekend. I had to work yesterday. And then my wife woke me up to biscuits and gravy. So, you know, yeah, it was good stuff. I noticed Ron Ellis is in your chat. We just ran him out of my live. I guess he just came over here. So,
yeah, I don't know who he is, but he asked me 7:30 is the interview is supposed to start 7:30.
Thank you, Brandy.
But yeah, he asked me something about what's going on in London. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't know what it means. Like, what does that mean? Like, oh, what's going on in London?
Just trolling. Just trolling.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. No, it was just funny.
Lonely.
Rachel was in here before I got in here. I was closing down my studio and she was like, "Ooh, Ron's in Lisa's live."
Oh, really?
I was like, "Oh, I gotta get in there quick." So I won't stay long. I do want to spend some time with the kids and stuff tonight. Just maybe do like a family game night or something with them. And so I'm not going to be in here. I did want to just come in and say I am going to be watching. And just so that you know, Lisa, I do watch the lives that I miss on the rewatch. So.
Oh, really?
I do, yes.
That's awesome. I'm so glad. Hold on. That is not. Sorry.
Ooh.
That is not.
Thank you, Ollie Mom.
Okay. Here we go. That's what I wanted. Hi, Tyler.
Hi there. How we doing?
I've been waiting to talk to you for weeks. I was so excited when you agreed to come on. Yeah, so I have just been telling everybody that will listen to me and some of the people that don't listen to me that you are coming on to them.
Well, flattery will get you everywhere. I'm very pleased to hear that, and thank you for the kind words.
So to get us started, well, welcome to Friends with Political Benefits. Like I said, we are so pleased to have you here. My name is Lisa. My co-host Stacy had a family emergency, so she couldn't be here tonight. But
that's all right.
Steve is right below me, Facts Still Matter. And
Tyler.
below him is our friend Terry, Teed Up Specials. Both of them are, pretty big creators in their own right, especially Steve. Steve is a legend around these TikTok streets, although he would not agree with that, but he is. Anyway, has been.
Wait a minute. What did Tyler say? Flattery will get you everywhere.
Yeah,
true.
That's right. That's right.
But only so far down the road, Lisa. So thank you, though. Appreciate you.
But yeah, so Tyler, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background, your education, family, and why you decided to run.
Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate the platform. It's a pleasure to be here. My name's Tyler Vandenberg. I'm a 7-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I was a Jeopardy champion, invited back for a tournament, so I guess it wasn't too bad. I just this week, I can finally say this, been keeping it to myself. I am now a graduate with a Master in Public Policy degree from the Harvard Kennedy School. I graduated 48 hours ago, so it's officially in hand. And I am a proud Great Society Democrat. For those of you in the audience who know your history, you'll know exactly what I'm referring to. For those of you in the audience who are curious what it might mean, here's what it means to me. The Great Society was Lyndon Johnson's program of expansive public and civil works in the middle of the century. This is the time period in the 1960s when the United States of America passed the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act. We passed the Great Society metros and built brand new subways all over the country. We did Medicare and Medicaid, and we expanded Social Security, and we invested in the National Endowment for the Arts, and we did all kinds of expansive big government stuff that was good for every American citizen. And I am a big believer that the government can and should do big, good things for everyone again, which is how I came to be here and to be in this race. I am very much looking forward to putting my wretched former Republican Congressman, Kevin Kiley, now the only independent in the House, quote unquote independent, don't believe his lies. But at the same time, the thing is that running in this district since Prop 50 has been a bit of a strange effort because we've been redrawn, but I am running because I believe that everyone in our country deserves to have big, good things happen for them again, rather than the morass of corruption and crimes that we live in. And I look forward to standing up for those things. So thank you for having me here.
Yeah, congratulations on graduating. That's amazing. And can you just tell us like what areas of California your district is?
Absolutely. So the areas of California that I am in are parts of Yolo, Sacramento, and Placer counties. This is a little bit different than the district used to look like. So back in the day when I was running against Mr. Kiley in the old California 3rd, the way that worked out is it was a much larger, much more rural district. Since redistricting, I have been working hard to put him out of a job in a new district that is more suburban, closer to Sacramento, but still includes huge numbers of folks that we've always both been running to represent, or at least I am running to represent, and he is running to hang on to his phony baloney job. This is one of those things where I have to make sure that folks are aware things have changed. It's caused a lot of confusion. We did the right thing with Prop 50, but not everybody knows where they live. And so getting the word out there about where the district is and who is in it and who is not in it and the kinds of candidates who are on our ballots is super, super important right now.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. Was it NOLA the Progressive? Oh, sorry. Yeah, sometimes
yes, I was like 48 hours ago. I was on NOLA the Progressive, so that is exactly
really? Right.
I was,
yeah.
yes.
6 degrees of separation. Okay.
How about that?
NOLA the Progressive was on our friend Danny's live just yesterday and the day before.
Oh, look.
So,
how about that?
Yeah.
Very, very small universe, but that's good. It means people are getting around, and we are doing our very best to make sure that people know what's going on.
Yep, absolutely. Steve, do you have a question?
I do. So I do a million, but I can be succinct. So thank you, Tyler. Congratulations on your success, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for your support.
I'm not sure how far north your district goes. I just happened to be in Shasta County a couple weeks ago.
Aha. Yes.
In Reading specifically, and I actually had an interesting face-to-face confrontation, I'll call it. We'll call it confrontation with the registrar of voters in that particular area. His name is Clint Curtis. Actually, a lot of activity around that. And that's where I wanted to go because we know we have a lot of Lisa and I have talked about this often about how there's distrust in our systems. how there's distrust in not only our election systems, but education and science and healthcare and the whole 9 yards. And I noticed on your website, by the way, thank you for being an outdoorsman, as am I. I live in Vermont.
Yep.
I'm about as far away from you as you can possibly get. So I appreciate
Well, I was
anybody
pretty close to you a couple
claims-
days of the week in Cambridge, but that's okay.
That's true. That's fair. That's fair. Close enough. Exactly.
Sure.
And I notice you talk about holding Republicans accountable.
Yes.
And that's complicated. So when you talk about that,
Sure
I
is.
notice on your platform it says congressional hearings into White House misconduct, corruption investigations into payoffs for senior officials. Can you unpack some of that for us a little bit? Because I think people hear that and we're all like, yes. But what does that
Right.
look like to you structurally?
Well, so what it looks like to me structurally, first of all, a wonderful question. Reading and Shasta County are actually outside of my district. They are far up north. Since redrawing, I believe, don't quote me on this because it's far outside of area, but Reading itself should be in current District 2, and then to its south, immediate south, is the dividing line with District 1, the new District 1, which is quite a competitive race, as I understand it. But holding Republicans accountable, to answer your question, is one of those things where it's a yes and approach. So I think for any of us on this stream, it is pretty obvious that the Trump administration is by far the most corrupt presidential administration in living memory, certainly, possibly in the 20th or 21st centuries, which is a pretty high bar to meet if you know American history. But at the same time, to me, holding Republicans accountable is going to require a bunch of approaches to what that accountability looks like. So on the one hand, we are going to have to investigate, impeach, subpoena, and use Congress's latent and not recently used power of arrest to go after White House officials, right? The Supreme Court might try to interfere and say the president himself is immune, but Pete Hegseth is not immune. Kristi Noem, now out of power, is not immune for her illegal orders or acts while she was in office, right? Pam Bondi, same deal. Kash Patel, abuses of power, taxpayer funds. All of these are going to require abuse investigations, right? Again, one of those things is that we're innocent until proven guilty in this country, but Congress has a responsibility to look into bad behavior or allegations of bad behavior. And with the Republican administration, with their Trump administration, I think this is one of those things where there's a lot of smoke, so we need to find out if there's fire. Beyond that, I think that one of the other things that we have to do is we are going to have to make sure that agencies that have been acting flagrantly illegally throughout this administration, I'm thinking specifically of ICE here, are going to need to be broken up and prosecuted, right? We know now that ICE has gone through all kinds of extremely flagrant abuses of just the most basic precepts of the American Constitution. One of the things I like to say on the campaign trail is if you watch an old Western movie and a bunch of guys ride into town with masks over their faces and no badges on their chest, right? That's usually not the sheriff's posse. It's usually the other guys. And the way that it works is that from the very founding days of this country, and even way back into England before the U.S. was even a glimmer in anyone's eye, identifying yourself as law enforcement and presenting a warrant is like a time-honored tradition of our legal system. We have to ensure that we're upholding that most basic precept, or we can't say that we have rule of law in this country. So this is what accountability looks like to me. We are going to have to prosecute people. Some of them are going to need to wear orange jumpsuits for the rest of their lives. But we need to ensure that we are using the full powers of Congress as creatively and as aggressively as possible against the administration, because they will try to duck and leave. They will try to get away. They will hire armies of lawyers to try to pretend that they were always immune for these things. And I just don't think that's true. And I think we need to use Congress's full weight to prove that they are not.
Just to follow up real quick, this is a bit of a political hot potato about articles of impeachment against the president.
Sure.
Knowing that it's going to be very unlikely to get 67 seats in the Senate to cooperate on something, do you still feel it's important to consider articles of impeachment against the president?
I do, because impeachment proceedings. So the way that impeachment works under our system, right? I do think we can probably vote to recommend a trial out of the House, but of course the trial in the Senate requires that majority to actually convict. Whether or not we have the majority to convict, the powers of Congress to impanel an impeachment hearing and then to investigate and to bring things to daylight using subpoena power, using investigative power, right? We've long since the independent counsel or the statutory separate investigation powers that characterize, say, the post-Watergate era have all lapsed because Republicans didn't like them very much. But at the same time, we do have to ensure that we are going through the process of impeachment because it provides powers to the Congress to impose accountability, or at the very least to investigate other subjects in the process, right? When we go and talk about things like, all the president's men or the Watergate hearings, right? It didn't start with Richard Nixon getting impeached. It started with investigations further down the chain that drew Congress's attention, that worked their way up the chain, that turned into, over time, investigations into other abuses by the US government, right? We're talking about the Church Committee here, or other kind of 1970s era accountability measures that Congress really got into the swing of things. I do not think it is too much of an ask in this era of extreme Trump administration corruption and this era of extreme Republican abuses against our democracy, to say that we ought to try to bring that spirit back. And starting with impeachment of the president and with the rest of the cabinet is going to have to be the foundational work, I think.
That's the way I've looked at it too. And I will add, the world is watching. I think that's incredibly important as well. So thank you for that, Tyler. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question.
I'm going to open it up to Terry and let him get his question. I could set my watch by the questions he's going to ask you, but but I just want to add that my view of it is that the midterms are the Republicans are going to get a shellacking, as
right.
Obama would say, in the midterms, to the point where you're going to see a very different Republican Party on the other side of it, because they are going to be looking down the barrel of a lame duck session with Trump. He is going to be very much out of favor. And I think that you are going to see a very frightened cabinet, knowing that what's coming to them. I mean, you've already had people like Peter Thiel pack up and leave. Like, he's leaving.
Good
right?
riddance. Good riddance.
He's leaving.
Yeah.
He's leaving, running to Argentina because he can see the writing on the wall, right? So,
wonder where I've heard that one before. Anyway.
Yes. Oh yeah, I know.
And why Argentina? And why Argentina?
Curious choice.
What is it? Yeah, I know. What is it with Argentina? But I think that's what we're going to see. So I do think that it's a very distinct possibility that you can get enough Republicans to vote to convict in the Senate after this midterms. I think we're going to have a lot better chance than we do right now. Terry, happy birthday again, my friend. Welcome, and it's all yours.
So first and foremost, thank you for your service. I'm also a vet as well.
Hey, how about that? Thank you for yours.
I was in the Army. I just didn't have a taste for crayons.
Shots fired.
Anyway, I'm just teasing. My son just enlisted into the Marine Corps. My
Nice.
18-year-old. I have 4 sons. My 2 oldest sons are in the Army. My 18-year-old just enlisted into the Marine Corps. Bye, son. And then, but anyway, my question is, first and foremost, I'm with you 100% on the articles of impeachment, especially starting at the cabinet level and then going up. I think you gain traction there. And then as those things do, dominoes will fall, and then, it could potentially lead to a presidential impeachment, conviction, and removal as well.
Sure.
That being said, so my question is always this, and Lisa's right. You can judge me however you want. How are you funding your campaign?
I'm a grassroots only candidate. So I do not accept corporate PAC contributions. I don't accept APAC contributions. I don't accept contributions from any foreign linked or business linked PAC. It's all small dollar. Some of it is funding actually from my Jeopardy winnings that I held over to bootstrap the beginning of the campaign. But most of those are kind of a long lost memory at this point. It's all Act Blue small dollar contributions from then till now.
I love that. I preach sermons on that every live I go on about how we need to be, helping our grassroots candidates because they're trying to help us. That being said, so it's obvious that you are anti-money in politics.
I am.
My question to you is how do you, with that knowledge, how are you going to, hold on, I got people coming in.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
So my question to you is that when you actually get in there, because I'm confident that you're going to get in there,
Thank you.
how are you going to react when they tell you that, you have a call time? How are you going to react to the call times?
Well, I mean, the way that I think I'm going to react to all the money stuff in politics is if I make it, then it means I made it without the money, and I look forward to continuing that way into the future, right? Like, I do think that there is a groundswell in American politics right now to try to build a politics without Citizens United, without money in politics the way that we experience it now, because it can't help but corrupt our democracy all the way through. To me, I understand that there are going to be all kinds of questions and offers and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, trying to get me to come over to the dark side and take oil money and, take whatever other kind of money that might be on offer. But to me, I don't think anybody should be bought and paid for in office, right? We should be responsive to our constituents and only our constituents. And in ensuring that we're fighting for the people back home, that is going to require making the hard choice and having the integrity to say, look, I understand that I'm going to have to, fundraise, but I'm going to do that the way that got me here. And I'm going to continue relying on my community and on folks who want a better politics, because as soon as I decide to sell out, then what's the point of being in office?
Right. My question is, as far as that goes, and I do have a huge problem with the money. I find that we have a huge problem with corporate welfare right now. How would you go about trying to pass effective legislation to be able to thwart corporate welfare as opposed to and I'm talking about like Walmart. When people hire in, a lot of hourly employees hire into Walmart. In their new employee orientation, they have to go in and they teach them how to fill out for SNAP benefits.
Yep.
While we still provide subsidies to Walmart.
Right.
Do you have a solution for that?
Yeah, I do. So here's where I start with this stuff. First of all, we are going to have to pass federal minimum wage laws. They're much more appropriate to the world we live in, right? Like the last time we raised the federal minimum wage law was like well over 20 years ago at this point. We know that everything in real terms is much more expensive than it used to be. And so that $7.25 in nominal terms doesn't buy what it used to. And if we go all the way back to the 1970s when the minimum wage was initially passed, then that was even higher than it was during the last adjustment. So that's going to have to be the start. Separately from Walmart or other corporate jobs like that, I would also say that one area where I think we need to be paying people more appropriately is our enlisted troops, right? Folks ask me a lot about military spending. Do you support a raise in the military budget, a cut to the military budget? And one of the things that I say is that I know for certain that we need to raise the military budget when it comes to specifically paying our enlisted members the service, because we know that well over 25% of enlisted military families are food insecure. So that's going to have to be a start as well. When it comes to passing legislation to ensure that folks who are working an honest day's work receive an honest day's pay, we are also going to have to do things like restore the Department of Labor to function, the National Labor Relations Board, right? All of these things have been ripped apart by the Republicans in an attempt to avoid accountability or effective organizing by working folks across our country. And it's done explicitly because they know that unions work and they are effective and they are able to exert power over their corporate masters, and Republicans don't like that very much. So I look forward to fighting not just to bring back the labor standards of old, but also to pass the PRO Act to ensure that people are recognized for their organized labor everywhere in the country, and that we are passing wage standards and, of course, Medicare for all to ensure that people are taken care of with their basic needs and that they're receiving appropriate compensation for the work they do.
Okay, I like it.
Can I ask a follow-up on that, Lisa?
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
So I'm glad you brought up the minimum wage. It doesn't get talked about enough. I mean, if we think about the history of the minimum wage, it goes back to the Depression era. The federal government has said we need to establish a baseline number to allow families to stay in their homes. It was white collar, it was blue collar, it was everyone. And you're right. It's been incremental drips and drabs of increases. And you're right. 2007, 2009 was the last time it was raised to $7.25. So I'm so glad you addressed that. That's one thing. And then the whole corporate welfare thing, which then segued, since you brought it up, about Medicare for All. We've had this conversation before, so just a little bit of my background. I've worked on 2 of Bernie Sanders campaigns. I served in my state legislature. So this conversation's been about healthcare for a very long time. It's really, really important to me. One thing that I think Democrats have missed and progressive have missed is they've not talked about it from a cost savings perspective. Everyone wants to put a price tag on it. And I think that's where the failure of messaging comes from. So how would you, when you talk to your voters, when you want to encourage people to vote for you, how do you sell them Medicare for All?
Well, I think the cost savings thing is a super important part of this, right? We know the United States of America spends about 50% more per person if there's any other industrial life. In doing so, we have put ourselves in a situation where we cover fewer people, we don't cover everybody, we get worse results, and we spend a lot more than any of our peer developed nations around the globe. So to me, when folks say, well, how are you going to pay for it? I say the same way that we pay for anything, except it's going to be cheaper and you're going to get better coverage. The cost savings thing, I think, is always kind of an interesting question because I think many of the voters are concerned about it. Because of course, no one wants their taxes to go up. We are in tough economic times already. Nobody wants to be handed a big tax bill all of a sudden out of nowhere. Just to pass a policy that isn't certain or doesn't have known effects. But the thing about universal health care is we know it does have known effects. It is quantifiable. We have plenty of evidence from countries around the globe, large to small, that say it does work, it is more effective, it is better than what we have here. And ensuring that we are freeing up that money to reinvest, I like to say that we have all the components of the world's best healthcare system. We just don't cover everyone and we don't give everybody access to it, which is the hardest part of the way we do healthcare, because in the US, we spend so much on administration, we spend so much on duplicating capabilities, on insurance processing, that if we were to remove all of those things, we would have a much better system than we do now.
Yeah, it's great. That's the point. You mentioned this before because Terry brought this up about corporate subsidies, the healthcare industry. And I think we have to separate the health insurance industry from the healthcare industry because I see nurses and doctors oftentimes being vilified because I think people think about the cost connected to practitioners, caregivers. So I think it's really important from a language perspective that we separate those two things because it's the insurance industry that's ripping us off. I think about United Health, for example. They build in claim denials into their P&L so they can report on their shareholders' earnings. And by the end of next year, it's going to be $7 trillion, almost 19% of our GDP total. And of that, around $2.5 trillion in profit for those industries. So thank you for bringing that up. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and just to kind of caveat off your point a little bit, it's exactly right. Nurses and doctors do not want to live in a system that is, leaving people out on the streets, that isn't caring for people, where people can't afford to see them. It's just a question of ensuring that the system we build on the other side takes care of the patients, of all the practitioners inside the system. Like the insurance corporations can go the way of the dodo as far as I'm concerned, but we need to build a system that takes care of our doctors and nurses and our healthcare providers all the way up and down the line as well, because without them, we don't have a system at all.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
100%. So, yep. Steve, don't even worry about it. Tonight, I'm just asking questions from the chat because I knew there would be a lot for Tyler. So, Tyler, do you support the billionaire tax in California?
Yes. Yeah, I do. A one-time tax is actually, I think, I support the notion of the billionaire tax. I support the way that we're going about it. I think we ought to probably consider doing it the way that Washington State is doing it instead of the way that we're doing it currently. A recurring top-end income tax is much more effective than a one-time haircut tax. So while I am supportive of this, I think it's a yes and there's more we can do.
So yes, and we need a more progressive tax system across the board. You're saying,
correct.
Like not
That's
just
exactly
stop
right.
there. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
No, I agree. I think I think that Tom Steyer and Becerra arguing back and forth. Yes, I think that they're both right. I think Becerra's right, and that we have to do more than just that one-time tax. And I think Steyer's right, in that the one-time tax is a good start. So. The other question is, what are your thoughts about the gerrymandering that is happening and the loss of voting power, especially in like southern states with the Voting Rights Act?
Yeah, so we know, of course, that the end of the Voting Rights Act has prompted one of the most disgusting displays that I've ever seen in American politics, which is a bunch of Republican governed states in the South. And I always want to draw, this distinction because there are plenty of people in Southern and in Republican controlled states who are good blue voters or who are maybe not voters who want good things to happen for them. It's just that they're controlled by these kind of wretched reactionary Republican regimes. And we know that in many of the southern states, they're controlled by these, kind of hard right regimes in their state capitals, that they were just itching for the moment the Voting Rights Act was ended so they could start implementing and drawing every Black district out of existence that has existed since the Civil Rights era. I think the reasons that they did this are pretty evident. I think that the speed with which they did it gives credence to the idea that that was always part of the agenda. And to me, the simple fact of the matter about where we are as a country is that we know now that passing a Civil Rights Act or a Voting Rights Act can save us for a while, but the Republicans have put in place this very strong legal system, right? All of these activist judges, the Federalist Society, and all of its little cronies on the federal bench, all the way up to the Supreme Court, all the way down to circuit and district courts, right? All of these people have been placed on the bench to tear apart anything that is used to protect the voting rights of all Americans across the country through Supreme Court litigation. To me, the answer to that is that we now have to do the thing that we always should have done and that we know succeeds as we did during the first Reconstruction, which is to codify it into the Constitution, right? We are going to need a package of, I think, 4 amendments. And those amendments are a civil rights amendment, a voting rights amendment, the equal rights amendment we finally need to pass after all these years and all of this effort. And I think we need a privacy amendment as well. And the privacy amendment is important not just for what's on the internet, not just for conversations in our homes, protection from government surveillance, but privacy is also the way that Roe v. Wade was upheld for so many years. It's also the way that marriage equality has been upheld for so many years. And watching the Republicans just itching to come for all of these things, we know Roe has already effectively been killed. We know, of course, that Obergefell is going to be revisited at some point by this court. All of these things require constitutional amendment because while an act can be repealed or declared unconstitutional, the actual text of the Constitution cannot. And so writing that in as a package of new amendments has to be, I think, the overarching mission in taking power in the coming years, because we absolutely have to ensure that everyone in our country is protected and feels safe and that their voting rights are protected, and that all of these things are action that the federal government takes, even in the face of states trying to oppose us.
It's so refreshing to hear that because I say the same things. I feel like I'm talking to the wall sometimes. So thank you for saying that. And I'm going to piggyback on something that we just talked about because I've never been an advocate or fan of gerrymandering. Now I understand redistricting happens, and I think that's constitutionally protected. But would you support 50 independent, bipartisan or nonpartisan redistricting committees in all 50 states?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and we ensure, a strong, robust system of nonpartisan redistricting committees. I mean, California had one for a while. It worked very well. It ended up getting overruled by Prop 50 because we were responding to Texas's kind of electoral aggression against our democracy. Yeah, I mean, 50 independent redistricting commissions would be great. I think also that we are going to have to bring back the pre-clearance requirements from the Voting Rights Act.
Agreed.
Because there are some states that are just never, ever going to play nice. They're governments, right? Not the people who live in them, but the governments who run certain states in this country are never going to play nice. They're never going to play fair. They're always going to try to install anti-democratic regimes in their own states and to try to push that envelope at the federal level. But having the federal government guarantee those things is, I think, a very good first step to bringing back a much more equitable nation for all voters.
And that leads us to the whole Citizens United. I think you already talked about that. Would be early in your agenda about overturning Citizens United. I think I heard you say that. So a couple rapid fire questions real quick. Based on that. It doesn't have to be a rapid fire answer, but it'll be a rapid fire question. Would you support expanding the Supreme Court to as many as 13 justices?
Yes.
Would you also support statehood for DC?
Yes, absolutely. I went to American University in my undergraduate years, and I lived in DC on and off for a few years. I'm absolutely in support of ending taxation without representation in the district.
And in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's where we get into the question. I personally believe that we should move for statehood with Puerto Rico, with DC. I think we should also move for statehood for Guam. And I believe that variously either the Marianas Islands or the U.S. Virgin Islands or both should also have the opportunity to become states. American Samoa is a little bit more complicated of the case because their legal arrangement is different inside our country. However, some of that relies also on ensuring that we're doing the right thing by the people who live there, right? So we know that Puerto Rico has voted a couple of times for statehood, but a lot of those referendums are pretty out of date now. We need to ensure that there's a more recent and up-to-date referendum. However, we also need to ensure that once the people of Puerto Rico has spoken, that we stand ready in Congress to take action as well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you said that. Again, talk about taxation without representation. We can just DC, I think, is a no-brainer. I think most people would agree. But the other territories, as you mentioned, Guam, and I'm glad you brought that up because I bring up Guam a lot and the USVI because territories. But you're right, they're contractual, for lack of a better term, their relationship with the federal government is a bit different. But I believe that we should bring those referendums and those voter measures back up again. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Terry, did you? I know. Steve kind of stole your 13 Supreme Court justices.
Sorry, bro.
You're all right, man. I'm glad you did.
But I was going to say he got you an answer anyway.
He did. In regards to that Supreme Court question, do you feel like would you be in favor of doing any type of a term limit on Supreme Court justices?
Yeah, so just to kind of get out of the rapid fire for a second and answer this question as fully as I can. Yes, we are going to have to expand the Supreme Court. Yes, we are going to have to institute term limits. Yes, we are going to have to institute a binding ethics code. Yes. And I think also we're probably going to have to impeach a couple of currently sitting justices. My personal preference is to start with Sam Alito. Accepting foreign titles of nobility is in the Constitution is something you can't do. Pretty cut and dried on that one. Clarence Thomas, of course, as well, hanging out with Harlan Crow all the time. I think there's something to look into there at the very least. However, to me, all of this is downstream of a very simple consideration, which I apply to the general Republican Party and I apply to the Supreme Court as well, which is dealing in good faith and coming to them and saying, let's make a deal, they view as weakness. And the longer that we allow them to walk all over us, the longer that these abuses will go on. The Supreme Court is regulatable and resizable and changeable by the Congress, right? This is a thing Congress has done many times. When the Supreme Court was set up in this country, it was 3 justices, right? And it's gone from anywhere from 3 to 10 justices and now has kind of hovered at 9 for a considerable amount of time. But that doesn't mean it's set there. And it doesn't mean that it's stuck at that number. 13, of course, comes up a lot because of the federal circuit courts, right? The number of circuits that are available, 1 justice per. I think that's a really good notion. But at the end of the day, all of this comes down to Congress needs to demonstrate in concrete terms to the Supreme Court that they are not these, unimpeachable, totally unelected, barons who rule over our democracy as, an unelected legislature. They are not. They are judges. And at the same time, Republicans yell and scream and cry about activist judges, blah, 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 blah. But they never seem to have a problem when their own side is rewriting the laws and destroying the ability of Congress to function independently. It's always just a way for them to complain about when Democrats are passing good policy. And so I think that bringing the Supreme Court to heel and bringing the justices, the Republican justices to heel, has to be a major part of our agenda. And that is going to require an all of the above approach.
Agreed. A little bit, I learned this history recently. Do you know why it's called a circuit court?
Tell me more. I'd like to hear this.
It's because the justices who had supervisory over their circuits used to ride on horseback around the circuit to visit the various courts within their districts. I have no idea. Sense. It makes perfect sense, though, if you think about it, historically speaking, obviously not now. So if we could shift gears just a tiny little bit, tell us about your district. If I were to ask you to draw a picture of an average voter in your district, Tyler, their walk of life, their income level, their I'm just curious. I know.
I always
know it's not.
this question.
I know it's not easy to do, but if you were to imagine that, what would that person be?
Okay, so this is a little bit. I hate to give like a politician's dodge here, but I'm actually running to represent one of the most diverse districts in the country. So the newly drawn California 6th stretches from Yolo to Sacramento to Placer counties. And in this, we have some of the largest concentrations in the country of Afghan Americans, mostly who came here right after the fall of Kabul. We have huge concentrations of Ukrainians and Russians. We have large concentrations of Sikhs. We have a very large South Asian community. We also have a major Southeast Asian community, largely Vietnamese, but not exclusively. We also have many Cambodians, Laotians. We also have Hmong people here as well. We have all kinds of folks from places that you might consider like older immigration waves to the United States, right? So I have a Dutch last name, and there's plenty of Dutch and Portuguese all over the Central Valley. We have lots and lots of different kinds of people, some of whom are moving up recently from the Bay Area, some of whom have been here since literally gold rush times. So it's a very kind of complex and unusual, even for California, district. Employment wise, we have all kinds of different jobs. Some of the largest employers in our district, of course, the state of California, the government of the state of California is a huge employer across much of our district. But also healthcare is a huge employer. The railroads, oddly enough, are a huge employer. Roseville has a major switching yard for one of the Class 1 railroads. We have all kinds of folks who work in the service industry. We have lots and lots of office jobs, but we also have lots of construction jobs because this is one of the fastest growing zip codes we have some of the fastest growing zip codes in the state of California because we are the last zip codes around a major city that but the Sacramento and greater Sacramento area up into Placer County, especially, not so much. So a lot of these things are growing very quickly, and that includes lots of construction jobs as well. We have lots of retirees, some of whom are, refugees from Florida, and some of whom have retired out of the Bay Area or Los Angeles. We also have lots and lots of young families that are moving to the area to try to live in a more affordable part of California, but hang on to that California dream that they might have grown up with or that their parents grew up with. So it's really difficult to kind of give you a sketch of like the median voter. I know Chuck Schumer in his head has, a family on Long Island that he's always talking to, but I really can't draw you a picture of that in my district because I would be drawing, 7 different kinds of people at once, and we're just not reducible like that.
So in other words, it's America, diverse, in all representation from all walks of life. And I think that's important because I wasn't expecting that answer, but I'm glad that is your answer.
I think that was the best answer we've ever gotten, Steve. I think that was the most detailed, best answer we've ever gotten.
I agree.
On that
well, I'll take it. That sounds good.
I think the fact that you were able to come up and name specific demographics within your base lets us know that you actually care about the people there and that you're concerned with the needs of all instead of just the one, and I love that question. I've been on a panel several times with Steve, and I always enjoy the answers that we get when Steve asked that question. I do have a question for you, and it deals with the, you were talking about zip codes with farmland right next to metropolitan areas.
Yep.
In that regard, everybody wants to talk about data centers. Everybody wants to talk about the AI data centers and everything. Is that something that you are up to snuff on? Is that something that you're comfortable speaking on?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. So in regards to AI in and of itself, what kind of regulation would you want? And in regards to data centers, what do you think we should be doing with that?
Okay, great question. An increasing issue out here. So there are whispers. I've heard whispers of data centers going in my district, data centers in nearby districts. And a lot of that, ironically, has to do with the fact that of all the places in California, or at least all the places in Northern California covered by PG&E, the Sacramento area actually has a couple of municipal utility districts. So power costs are unusually low because we have public ownership in Roseville and in the greater Sacramento area. What that means is that data centers are coming. Now, with AI, it's a powerful tool and it is part of our lives now, but I'm extremely concerned with many of the abuses that we see with AI. So the loss of IP protections, right? The rise in deep fake pornography or other sorts of revenge porn, that is a huge concern. I am extremely concerned about the use of AI to falsify information or to kind of destroy the information flow on the internet and in the media, or to create images that are not necessarily real as disinformation tactics, right? That's both a national security problem and just like a domestic like liability problem. However, the biggest thing that I'm concerned about with AI specifically is the size of what I have been, reliably informed by people I trust is a bubble. And the AI bubble is now, if I understand the numbers correctly, well over 10 times the size of the dot-com bubble by valuation. This is an extremely risky proposition because any deflation of the AI bubble takes with it huge sections of venture capital, private equity, banks, as I understand it. Like all of this is a concern of mine. And I think our government should start getting ready for a slowdown or a deflation in the AI sector should it happen the way that some sources are saying it will. Now, about data centers. Because AI is not going away, the thing about data centers to me is we need to ensure that one, the people who are putting in data centers are not doing so at the expense of a local community, right? So a data center can't come in and like take up all the city's power and water and then just run it into the ground while people are paying 2, 3, 4 times the rate or losing access entirely, as is about to happen or is projected to happen in many parts of more rural California, losing their power agreements elsewhere because data centers are outpricing rural towns. Famously, this is going on right now in the Tahoe Basin, but it's certainly not the only place where that is happening. One of the things as well is that I don't understand exactly why it is that we have to be going about this reactivation of coal power plants or doing all of this fossil fuel, natural gas generators to keep the data centers going when we know now that solar power is now the cheapest form of energy in human history. A huge plank of my full platform is building a green new grid. And in building that green new grid, I believe that we need to install huge amounts of new solar. The Biden administration did a good job on getting us part of the way there, but now Trump is sabotaging it all. But in doing so, we need to build not just the solar power centers, not just battery storage, but we also need to build new transmission lines because that is a huge limiting factor to us building new clean energy. Lots of the money is there in the market, but we need to ensure that there are transmission lines and that towns are getting hooked up. Back in the 1950s and 1960s, in a different era, people used to say about nuclear power, which never came true, that it would be quote unquote too cheap to meter. I do think that moving in that direction with solar power is an achievable goal, and we need the US government to spend money on that. That, I think, is one of the biggest ways we can blunt the impact of data centers on our communities as well.
I mean, if you listen to Doug Burgum, our Interior Secretary, Tyler, he would tell you that we can't have solar or wind because when the wind doesn't blow or the sun doesn't shine, those those resources don't work.
That's right. That's right. We've never invented a battery. There's nothing in your phone. You actually have to keep it tethered all the time. It's like a landline. I don't know how I'm talking to you. This is just magic, but whatever.
Total magic. Yeah, total
That's right.
Magic. Sorry, Terry. I just wanted to jump in there.
No, you're fine. He answered what I was wanting to know. Do you feel like this push for the data centers, do you feel like that this is a little preemptive? Do you think that we're putting the cart before the horse? I mean, and the reason I say that is this. I know AI isn't going away, but the amount of investment and the amount of space that they're trying to take up with these, it seems like, necessity is the mother of all invention. And it seems like if we're this close to having huge data centers that are this large, that drain this much energy, what's going to happen when a better system comes out for providing these data centers? We're building these huge metropolises, a small city in the middle of the desert to drain all the water and everything, destroy that. That's the biggest problem that I have with them, is the fact that we are rushing headlong into these huge, massive billion-dollar investments when a simpler, cheaper solution is probably right around the corner.
Yeah, I think that this is one of those things. We know that the history of American investment in new sectors is usually to generate a bubble, and then the bubble pops, and then we get left with some useful pieces on the other side, and those become the basis of what a stable version of the field looks like. I do think we are putting the cart before the horse, but the we in that question is not the U.S. government and certainly not U.S. politicians, although the Trump administration is certainly enabling it, and depending on who you ask, Trump's kids are part of it. To varying degrees. But what I would say is that this is one of those things where the market and what I would describe as like market irrationality is driving a lot of this. But this is the old Keynes quote, right? The market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. And one of the things about where we are with data centers is that there is so much capital invested in these things. There is so much from Wall Street, from sovereign wealth funds, from private equity, from venture capital. And everyone needs this to be true so badly that it doesn't advantage anyone to start talking about, well, you know, what happens if this doesn't work out, right? What happens if this turns out to be a bubble? As you know, I think I've been convinced it likely is. I think that where we are is a dangerous position to be. However, I am not greatly convinced that we are taking the appropriate steps to avoid these becoming just stranded, half-built assets, if and when such a bubble might rupture. So I think as far as the AI sector goes, this is a great example of where the US government ought to be looking into the sector. And we ought to have things like a functioning, Securities and Exchanges Commission, right? We ought to have a functioning federal bureaucracy with professionals who can look into these things and say, hey, are these stable or safe investments? Hey, should we be, IPOing XYZ company at such enormous valuations?
In other words, we need Nina Khan back. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and a lot of this, right? A lot of this just comes down to: do we have a functioning U.S. government that has learned the lessons of decades and decades and decades of market manipulation and explosions from previous decades that can properly and effectively regulate a new sector? And the answer right now is no, because the Republicans don't want that, because it would be very hard to do what they want to do in such a world.
Yeah, and too many politicians on both sides are being paid to look the other way, to facilitate a complete takeover of tech industry, of the tech industry, right? Sure. Of private equity and private credit and all that stuff. So I have a few questions from the chat. There's three of them. I'm just going to combine them.
Sure.
So it's all about data centers. There is a concern about the environmental impact of data centers. Why doesn't the data centers have solar fields to offset the fossil fuel energy, right? Fossil fuel energies. And why can't we make data centers contingent on having renewable power?
Well, this is a complicated set of questions, but the simplest answer is because the Trump administration is sabotaging that from happening. So a great example of this is in northern Nevada, on the backside of the Sierra Range, just over from California. One of the largest solar plants in the world was being built. When completed, it was supposed to be about 3 times the size in output of the Hoover Dam. Absolutely enormous, clean energy for days, could absolutely hook up huge sections of the Southwest to bring their power prices down, to power as many data centers as we wanted. And I believe, if I understand the math correctly and the timing correctly, though I could be wrong, that many of the data centers that are currently scrambling to find natural gas generators all over the country were predicated on this clean energy boom continuing, right? So the Trump administration's piece in this solar field not being completed is that it was being built on Bureau of Land Management land, which is owned by the federal government. And all of a sudden, the permits were all pulled for this project to be completed. So this is now, huge amounts of stranded assets where the companies that were building it are out of pocket and can't get it finished, where no one has permission to go in and finish it, where they can't be turned on until the project is completed. And, everyone loses, including the private sector here, but it doesn't matter because the Republicans believe that solar power is wimpy, or that it doesn't work at night, or whatever. And they Right. They've convinced themselves of all of these things. So let's act irrationally to punish what sounds like liberal coded, power plants because we want to. That to me is the heart of the problem here.
Yeah, we've lost tens of thousands of really good union jobs because of Trump's cutbacks to solar and wind. I mean, in fact, there was a few situations where he actually paid billions of dollars, like paid out contracts, billions of dollars to not finish solar contracts, right? I mean, wind contracts, which
yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Ridiculous.
Wind contracts, particularly offshore wind contracts.
Yes, offshore, yes. Yep. And so we paid billions of taxpayer dollars for, and he told them, even though I'm paying up the contract, I do not want you to finish this. And it's all to protect and prop up the fossil fuel industry, which is a dying industry.
Right.
Everybody knows it. Everybody can see it. Hi, Danny. If you want to join the panel, just request up. There's one other question, and I actually would like to hear the answer to that too. How do you feel about the fiscal year 2027 National Defense Act, specifically Section 224? So I know, and everybody's going to start being asked about this question.
Sure. So Section 224, I have not gone through the NDAA because frankly, I'm campaigning full time right now, and in-depth policy looks are a little bit outside of my wheelhouse for the moment. But here's what I'll say about the top line stuff in the NDAA. The 50% growth in the defense budget that is projected to happen, right? A jump to $1.5 trillion is both completely unsustainable, totally unnecessary, and frankly, I think irresponsible given where we are as a nation and what we should be spending our money on. To me, a massive jump in defense spending without a strategy to back it up, or any sort of comprehensive idea of what even we should be spending that money on, while starting, flagrantly illegal wars overseas. All of this basically, to me, comes down to a question about, well, why are we doing this, right? Like, what is this for? And if we are going to have a military that is effectively equipped and responsibly run, then just like massively increasing the budget and hoping that that's going to work is nothing that I would support in Congress. Now, some things that I will say about defense priorities. Listen, I believe in having a strong, well-defended America, but like this Trump battleship project or whatever the heck is going on, waste of money. The end of the New START treaty back in February, our last bilateral nuclear arms control treaty with the Russian Federation, is extremely worrying because we know that in recent years, a nuclear arms race has become much more likely again without those controls. I think it is all but a certainty that with China and Russia no longer bound by such treaties, and the US no longer bound by such treaties either, that we could see massive increases in spending for nuclear weapons, a la the Cold War all over again, which I do not support. The amount of weapons we have right now, I think, is more than sufficient for defending the nation and maintaining deterrence. And so going above the $1 trillion, I think the exact figure is $972 billion that the US government expects to spend over the next 10 years on nuclear weapons, really concerns me, because we know that the entire purpose of nuclear weapons is to sit in silos completely unused and benefiting nobody, right up until the moment where they extremely don't benefit anybody, finally. So to me, using the power of Congress to impose controls on these sorts of like rampant possible expenditures and this runaway kind of escalation in the purposes of our defense spending, I think that is going to have to be a big job in Congress coming up.
So in regards to that, I'd like to jump in real quick, if you don't mind, Lisa.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think a lot of that has to do with the extra expenditures that he's looking for, has to do with contracts in which we're going into our drone technologies. You're looking at Eric has 275,000 shares of a drone company given to him in which they're getting contracts. I think a lot of it is just another part of the grift that the Trump crime family is getting in on. That being said, the specific part I think that people were asking about and that people are going to be asking about is in regards to a merger between the United States and Israeli military force. And just kind of curious as to what your thoughts would be on that, as to why or why not we should have that.
I To be honest, I don't know very much about this one specifically. This is new to me, and it's not a question of like lack of paying attention. It is that in the final days of a race with just a couple of days to go before my, I'm going to refrain from commentary on this because I don't have the full picture and I don't know the parameters of what's included. So I will have to say that I'm going to plead ignorance on this one because I just don't know.
Appreciate that. That's actually,
Yeah.
we appreciate those answers.
Yeah.
I can totally respect that. In regards to that bill, though, I would implore you to look into it and read the language in on that, because that is something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. So, but that's all I have. Hey, guys, Tyler, it was great meeting you. I've got to get off. It's my birthday. My kids want to spend time with
happy
me.
birthday.
HBD, bro.
And I'm going to let them. So,
No, appreciate you coming on your birthday, Terry, and spending some time with us. Happy birthday, my friend. Love you much.
thank you.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
I want to be sensitive to your time as well, Tyler, but I think since you brought this up, talk about how we spend our money. I host lives daily in this space, 8 a.m. till noon Eastern time. And I always talk about, I was raised by a teacher. I'm surrounded by teachers. I prioritize my education. I have an MBA. I think education in our country has been demonized, I think, for two reasons. One, I don't think people understand what the Department of Education does, why they were established in the first place. And two, so you also, I'm going to combine a couple of things. As you talk about healthcare, you talk about education, you talk about, prioritizing marginalized communities. People don't understand that when we're making cuts, we know the OBBA, the one big fat ugly ass bill, is basically now in effect. We're here. We're seeing the ramifications of it. We know healthcare cuts through Medicaid, Medicare. We know rural hospitals are closing. We know SNAP benefits are cut. And that also impacts schools, because public schools across the country that provide free breakfast and lunch to children, for some reason, people in our country don't think that food is a right. So when you're unpacking these conversations with people and you're talking about prioritization of education, and whether it be the DOE or in general, how do you convince people or attempt to convince people the importance of education and why we need to overinvest, in my mind? I know it's a lot of layers to that question, so take it any way you want.
Yeah, thank you. So in the last few minutes, because I do have a hard out at 5:30 for additional campaign events, but I will definitely, I definitely respect this question, and I will follow it up as completely as I can. So the Department of Education is super useful because it not only maintains standards across our country, right, in education. We know that when Republicans, particularly in the last 50 years or so, say things like, well, the Department of Education needs to go away. Well, we need to reserve education for the states. And we get into all kinds of kind of like Looney Tunes stuff where they're like, well, it's not in the Constitution. Well, lots of things aren't in the Constitution, but are authorized by statute. So we'll start there. But if they want to codify it into the Constitution with us, happy to do so. The thing about the Department of Education is that its greatest asset, its greatest benefit, is ensuring that everybody in the country receives the education that they deserve in basic civics, in American history, in ensuring that we're investing in scientific standards, that we are prepping our kids to compete in the modern world, but also that we are building good citizens on the other side who live as part of a unified America and as part of a country that is moving forward in time and is adapting to the modern world. When we see rebellions against the Department of Education, we should understand those as ways of winding back the educational curriculum in Republican-controlled states, because DOE standards mean that they have to teach things a certain way, an agreed-upon way, and in a democratic and pro-America, I would describe, way. Whereas, Republicans would much rather teach a very different kind of history and a very different kind of science and all of these things. It is important, I think, also to recognize that the Department of Education and things that have been passed in the 70s and 80s, like IDEA funding, like special education funding, right? The federal government has a huge role in backstopping these things. And the destruction of the Department of Education is also a way of the federal government not fulfilling its promise to people who are differently abled, who need support in their learning, who require federal funds to have their their schools properly equipped to meet everybody's educational needs in the modern world. All of these things, I think, should be understood as the Republicans attempting to take us back into the past. And the bad old days, especially in education in America, especially in certain parts of this country, are not somewhere that I'm willing or I'm going to tolerate the country going.
Same here. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you again. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tyler, for being here. I just have one last question. Will you come back again before your election and talk to us again? Because I think there's a lot of things we didn't get to.
Would absolutely love to. The primary is on Tuesday, though.
Tuesday.
So I probably
I thought it was a jungle primary in California.
It is. It sure is. And so we have a jungle primary on Tuesday. So I have to get into the top. I might as well just do the end kind of pitch here.
Do it.
Go ahead.
Yes.
This Tuesday, June 2nd, is the jungle primary all across the state of California. So most people are familiar with this because of the governor's race, right?
That's right. And then you go to a runoff. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Correct.
I had a brain fart for a second. Yep. Okay.
No, not at all. So I do have to get into the top two. There is the now independent former Republican Kevin Kiley, the incumbent, quote unquote, incumbent representative for about 30% of the district, who's running again in this district. I don't like him. He doesn't like me. I'm going to put him out of a job permanently in November. But I do need the votes of your kind listeners if they live in the California 6th district this Tuesday, because this Tuesday is going to determine who faces Kevin Kiley. It's very likely, the math says, he will probably get one of the top two spots. We need to ensure we are sending not just a Democrat, but the right Democrat, someone who's going to fight for our Constitution, who's going to hold the Republicans accountable and Trump accountable, who knows how to deal with Republican tricks and tactics, someone who is going to fight to rebuild our great society with Medicare for all, with homes for every generation, with the Green New Grid, protecting Social Security, investing in our education, and building better transit, and someone who is going to ensure that America is safe for everyone in our communities. That means our immigrant neighbors by breaking up and prosecuting ICE, everybody in our LGBTQ plus communities, including trans kids and trans adults, ensuring that folks of all faiths, colors, creeds, and backgrounds are safe and welcome in our country. And ensuring, of course, that unbelievably in the year 2026, the rights of women to vote and to privacy in their health care are protected as well. That is why I'm running. It is why I'm running to put Kevin Kiley out of a job. I think he was the wrong representative for us before. He will continue to be the wrong representative for us in the future. And more than all of that, getting through the primary and on to the general is a great chance for us to start the work of building a better future right away through the organization we are doing in our community. So after the primary, I very much look forward to calling you back in the general and talking much more about my policy priorities. But for the time being, I do need to finish out on Tuesday as strong as possible, and that is why I have my heart out. So thank you very much for your time. I look forward to being back in the general election.
Thank you, Tyler.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you so
your time,
much.
sir.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Tyler.
Thank you both.
Good luck. Be well.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Yeah, if you are able, please go and donate to Tyler. If you are in his district, please go vote for him. And if you have family members or friends who might live in the district, let them know about this amazing candidate. I mean, I could have talked to him all night. I don't know about you, Steve.
Well, you know me, Lisa. I had a laundry list of questions.
Oh my goodness, so many. Yeah, and I didn't realize he had a heart out when we booked it. I think it's because it's in the final stretch. He's just
it's go time.
things. Yeah, it's go time. So,
Yep.
but I appreciate him spending the hour with us. That was amazing, absolutely amazing.
Couple things that I wanted to point out to people. I think that's really, really important. See, when we, and again, you're always gracious allowing me to sit in on these. I think it's great. I think it's good for everybody. But that's someone who's really invested in his district. He really knows his district. He knows he's honest about it. Like I can't point to any one individual, but I know the diversity that makes our district so strong. He understands what the threats are. He knows his neighbors. He knows the impact of federal cuts and policies. That's someone who's really prepared. That's someone who's really prepared to run for office. And I would encourage anyone who wants to throw their hat in the ring to do it. But that should be a model for a lot of people, right? That should be a model. If we didn't get into his progressive politics, we didn't ask the question about harm reduction, I don't think we need to. That's somebody that I think we should advocate for, because that's what we want in our elected officials. Someone who's willing to push back against the status quo, someone who's not going to take corporate money, someone who says, listen, there's a big fight ahead of us and we got to row our boat in the same direction. And these are the things we need to call out. So that was refreshing. I really appreciate it.
It really
appreciate
was.
this time.
And I know you had daddy daughter stuff to do, girl dad stuff to do the other night. But Tia LeBrun, she is in Louisiana District 3, and she was another one who knew policy front to back. She knew like just as much as we knew about like different policies, laws, I mean, she could teach a master class. And as you said, these are the kind of people that we want. She doesn't take APEC money. She doesn't take corporate money. She understands the assignment, all the things, right? And it's like, it was, yeah, me and Stacy could have, we talked to her for, I think, 2.5 hours and could have just kept right on because she was absolutely perfection as a candidate. And will be as a sitting member of Congress. And I mean, she's in a red district, right? And we know Louisiana just drew themselves a nice little map. But I'm still saying, guys, I'm still saying by them trying to crack these black districts, they are diluting the Republican vote in order to do this. And they are actually going to make it easier for our progressive candidates to win. I really do believe that.
Tyler's website is TV, the number 4ca.com. So it's TV4ca.com. His policy positions are holding Republicans accountable, rebuilding our great society, making America safe for everyone. It's really succinct, easy to read, easy to understand. Thank you for having me. As always, it's a pleasure to do these kinds of things.
Yes, absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you sit in and help me out with this because we just started this and we were just kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall, no clue. And you very much helped us figure out like what questions were more important to ask and stuff like that. We just had like a basic list. And so we have learned so much from you on how to get out of these candidates, what is most important for us to know. So
well, thank you for saying that. But you can take your flowers too, please. You're the one. You and Stacey are the ones that built the platform. So take your flowers, okay?
Okay, we'll do. We'll do. Take all the flowers.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you. See you later.
Have a good night.
You too.
Love Steve. Absolutely love Steve. He is great. So supportive. Yes, the other creators on this app, if you guys saw the video that I posted a couple days ago, giving all these amazing creators their flowers because they are just absolutely brilliant. I learned so much from them. I do this part-time. I mean, it's a full-time job, believe it or not, but I say I do it because I have a full-time job. Most of us do, right? Most of us do have a full-time job, and we are just trying to do our best here at helping to educate and inform people, helping to, get information out, helping, to make sure people are registered to vote, and that they can see and talk to these candidates and ask questions and get an idea of who they should be voting for, what they should be looking for in a candidate, right? Yeah, and so I'm so grateful to every single one of you for being here. Yeah, I know, Josh. I know, beloved. Got you, my friend. Josh is here every single time, every single candidate, and then says at the end that this is why he doesn't vote for Democrats, but he listens every time. So I'm hoping like that it'll just like kind of sink in, like eventually, right? But yeah, but he's here supporting, right? He's here supporting, so we like that. All right, guys, I am going to say goodnight. Usually I would stay on, we would talk about the news and all this stuff, especially, I appreciate everybody coming in. I appreciate all the new follows, all the gifts, all the stuff. I so much. Yes, exactly, Jaybird. I appreciate you guys, everything that you do. I appreciate our, Steve and Terry for joining me. They are amazing creators. Make sure you go and follow them and check them out when they go live. Thank you so much for our mods, Brandy and Cheryl and Titus. And thank you so much for our producers, Jen and Marnie, who couldn't be here. Tammy and Jen, you guys were doing so fantastic, getting all the comments, all the questions out of the chat so that we could ask questions that, you know, you guys really wanted to know. And I'm sorry if I didn't get to them. You know, I really try, but I usually like to give Steve and Terry, you know, the floor, because they always ask really good questions. They come here, they help support us, and we are a small but growing platform. So having them up here on the panel really brings people in and really, you know, helps push us out to the FYP. So I try to give them the floor as much as possible. But, you know, Tyler said he'll join us again. They did. Yes, they did. And you had some really great questions, guys. Norgay, you had some fantastic questions. Everybody had fantastic questions. Thank you, Texas Rose of Sharon. Thank you. Yeah. So Tuesday we have Joe Reagan. Our producer Jen is moving into his Colorado district, so she is going to be taking the lead on that. But we'll still be up here. So Jen will be joining us on the panel as a guest host on Tuesday. Sorry, my bad. That's next week. So I think it's this Wednesday we have Aaron Guys. And then next week we have Joe Reagan and Erica Kopp, I think it is. So yeah, just make sure, go to my profile right now, guys, go to my bio, click the little bell, and it'll notify you whenever we're live. You know, most of the time we have a candidate. Tomorrow we're going to be talking to John Blake, who is running for New Jersey District 4. He's been on the show multiple times. He's, you know, sort of a friend of the show. He was at Newark. He was in, you know, the ICE facility in Newark. That's been all over the social media, all over the news, right? All that kind of stuff. So he is going to come and talk to us about that, tell us what he saw. He was there yesterday. So yeah, we're going to get the download from him. We'll be back on tomorrow at 8 o'clock. So our YouTube is FWPB pod. So at FWPB POD. The link also is in my link tree under like, I think it says support. I think it says support FWPB or something. There's like also the icons at the top of the link tree. Yeah. Okay, and Jen DM'd it. See, our mods are just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Our mods and producers are absolutely incredible. Love you guys so much. Yep, I am exhausted. That's why I'm just wearing a hat, no makeup. Like, I probably got dirt on my face. Like, I was cleaning out my dad's shed all day. I am absolutely freaking done. And Jonah is so done with my butt. So for anybody new who was wondering why we have a parrot in our logo, this is Jonah, our mascot. Say hello, Jonah, to all the new people that came to see you. They came to see you. Yes. Yeah. He's very excited that you came to see him and says thank you. It's because the background blocks him. But if I turn this way, yeah, he was on my shoulder the entire time, guys. The entire time Jonah was there. Yep. The entire time. He's most lives he is sitting right on my shoulder. And that's why we have a parrot in our logo. Yes, he is gorgeous. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. He is my buddy. He is you know, with me all the time. I work from home, so he's always with me. And I don't know what I would do without him. He's very much my emotional support parrot. It's a thing. I made it up, but it's still a thing. Anyway, guys, love you so much. Much love to you. Much appreciation, guys. I could not do this without you. I'm telling you. And if Stacy were here, my gorgeous co-host, and I'll just say gorgeous lightly, she is absolutely stunning and brilliant and all the things. She could not be here tonight because of a family emergency. And so sending her, you know, all my prayers and my thoughts and my energy for her and her family. They're, you know, at a difficult time. So anyway, love you guys. I will see you